Welcome to our channel. If you believe that truth always prevails and a father's love can overcome any storm, hit that subscribe button to join our community. Your support keeps these inspiring stories alive every single day. Thank you for being here. Where in the world are you listening from today? Drop your location in the comments, and let's dive into today's story. Sign the approval, Mr. Carter. I can't put my name on numbers I know are false. Then you're choosing not to be paid. I'm choosing not to lie. Security will collect your badge. Before they do, Ms. Hart, ask yourself why someone changed account 47. The conference room on the 47th floor went so still that Daniel Carter could hear the faint click of the wall clock behind him. Morning sunlight pressed through the glass windows, turning the polished table into a long sheet of gold, yet nothing in the room felt warm. Evelyn Hart sat at the far end beneath the silver logo of Hartwell Technologies, one hand resting beside Daniel's unpaid invoice. At 37, she had built a billion-dollar company by making decisions faster than anyone else could question them. Her navy suit was flawless, her posture controlled, her expression carved from certainty. Around her, 6 board members stared at Daniel as though he had interrupted a ceremony instead of exposing a problem. Marcus Reed, the chief financial officer, leaned back with practiced disappointment. "We've reviewed his concerns," he said. "There is no issue with the account." Daniel looked at him, then opened the original ledger. Marcus smiled without kindness. "Your contract does not authorize you to challenge executive finance. It authorizes me to protect the payment system." "Enough," Evelyn said. She slid the invoice toward herself, drew one clean line across the approval box, and placed her pen down. The sound was small. The consequence was not. Daniel had worked 11 weeks for that money. It covered rent on the 2-bedroom apartment he shared with his 9-year-old daughter, Sophie. It covered groceries, her asthma prescription, and the pair of black shoes she needed for Friday's school recital. He felt his phone vibrate inside his jacket, but he did not reach for it. He already knew whose name would be glowing on the screen. Evelyn watched him carefully, perhaps expecting anger, pleading, or the quick surrender of a man with too much to lose. Daniel gave her none of those things. He closed the report, aligned its edges, and pushed it across the table. 3 warnings, he said. All documented. Marcus folded his arms. "Threats won't help you." It wasn't a threat. Daniel rose and removed the security badge from his belt. "It was the last free thing I was willing to give this company." A few eyes shifted toward Evelyn. Her jaw tightened. "Cut off all pending compensation," she told Marcus. "Effective immediately." Daniel's phone vibrated again. This time, he glanced down. Sophie's message contained only 8 words. "Daddy, did they pay you for the shoes?" For one brief second, the room seemed farther away. Then Daniel placed the badge beside the rejected invoice and looked directly at the woman who believed she had ended the conversation. "No," he said quietly, answering both his daughter and the CEO. "But in 3 days, you may wish you had." Daniel Carter walked out of Hartwell Technologies carrying a cardboard box that held a coffee mug, 2 engineering manuals, and a frame drawing Sophie had made of them standing beneath a crooked yellow sun. The elevator descended in measured silence while his phone remained open to her message. He typed 3 words, erased them, then tried again. "We will talk tonight." The lobby below shimmered with marble, brass, and the polished confidence of people who had never counted the days until rent was due. Daniel crossed it without lowering his head. A security officer near the revolving doors looked at the box and offered a quiet nod. Daniel returned it. Respect did not always arrive through grand gestures. Sometimes it was one man refusing to make another feel smaller. Outside, late October air swept between the downtown towers and carried the smell of rain from Lake Michigan. Daniel pulled his worn coat tighter and checked his bank account. $286. Rent was due in 3 days. Sophie's prescription needed refilling. Tomorrow, her recital shoes cost $39 before tax. His truck had less than a quarter tank of gas. He studied the numbers once, locked the screen, and headed toward the parking garage. "You could have signed it." The voice came from behind him. Daniel turned and found Natalie Brooks, a young systems analyst from the meeting, hurrying across the sidewalk. "You would have been paid," she said, "for approving false records. Nobody else knows they are false. Marcus does." Natalie glanced toward the glass entrance. "Can you prove it?" Daniel opened the box and lifted one of the manuals. Tucked inside was a printed diagram covered in dates, account codes, and routing paths. I built the first version of Hartwell's payroll security architecture 12 years ago, he said. Her eyes widened. That was you. Before Evelyn bought the company. Before Marcus rewrote the history. Traffic moved behind them in a low metallic current. A city bus sighed at the curb, and somewhere above, a window washer's platform creaked against the wind. Daniel pointed to 3 circles marked in red. Separate vendors, separate invoices, separate states. Every payment ended at the same holding account. Account 47. How much? Natalie whispered. Enough to damage the company. Not enough to be noticed all at once. Tell Evelyn. I did. Then tell the board. Daniel placed the diagram back inside the book. Not until I know who else is involved. Natalie looked at him as though seeing a different man from the quiet contractor who ate lunch alone and repaired broken keyboards without being asked. What happens in 3 days? She said. Daniel's gaze moved toward the upper floors, where sunlight flashed across the conference room windows like a warning no one had learned to read. Hartwell signs its largest investment agreement, he replied. Once that money enters the system, Marcus can move more in 10 minutes than he stole in 2 years. Natalie drew a careful breath. And if nobody stops him? Daniel closed the box. Evelyn loses her company. His phone rang before she could answer. The landlord's name appeared on the screen. Daniel accepted the call and listened without interruption. Friday, the man said. Full payment, Daniel. I cannot extend it again. I understand. 3 days. I heard you. The call ended. Natalie watched his expression, waiting for frustration to crack through his composure. It never did. Daniel carried the box toward his aging blue pickup, but before opening the door, he looked at the Hartwell building one final time. 3 days stood between his daughter and eviction. The same 3 days stood between Evelyn Hart and ruin. Only Daniel knew that saving one might cost him the other. Evelyn Hart remained in the conference room long after the others had left, watching gray clouds gather beyond the Chicago skyline. At 37, she possessed the kind of striking beauty that made strangers pause before they understood why. Her dark auburn hair fell in a smooth line below her shoulders. Her pale blue eyes carried an almost crystalline sharpness, and every movement revealed the discipline of someone who had spent years refusing to appear uncertain. Beauty had opened doors when she was young, but it had also taught her how quickly people confused appearance with weakness. She had answered that mistake by becoming harder than anyone expected. Hartwell Technologies had been worth less than $40 million when she acquired it. 8 years later, it stood near $2 billion. Evelyn credited no miracle, no mentor, and no act of mercy. She trusted preparation, leverage, and control. Feelings, in her experience, were expensive distractions. You are still thinking about Carter, Marcus Reed said as he returned carrying a slim black folder. Evelyn did not turn. I am thinking about the timing. His accusation was designed to delay the Sloan agreement. Why would a contractor risk 11 weeks of pay merely to cause a delay? Marcus approached the table and set the folder beside her. His silver cuff links caught the fading daylight. Because men like Daniel Carter need to feel important. He saw an irregular code, misunderstood it, and built a heroic story around himself. Evelyn opened the folder. Inside were performance notes, access logs, and a complaint claiming Daniel had refused direct instructions. On 4 occasions. He never mentioned building our original payroll architecture, she said. Marcus gave a measured shrug. He contributed to an early vendor platform. That is different from building it. Natalie Brooks seemed surprised. Natalie is young. So was I when people dismissed me. Marcus paused, then softened his voice. And that is precisely why you recognize ambition when it becomes dangerous. The words reached the part of Evelyn that had survived countless rooms where older men smiled at her ideas and repeated them as their own. She looked again at Daniel's file. Near the back, one page had been folded incorrectly. She pulled it free. It was a compensation review from 6 years earlier. Daniel had been offered a $25,000 performance bonus after identifying a payroll flaw. Beneath the approval line, a handwritten note explained that he had declined the full amount and requested the money be divided among 12 hourly employees whose paychecks had been delayed. Evelyn read the sentence twice. Why is this here? Marcus leaned closer, and for the first time that afternoon, something moved behind his confident expression. Old paperwork. Sentimental theater. The employees confirmed it. People remember generosity more clearly than incompetence. Evelyn lifted another sheet, but Marcus reached forward and closed the folder. The gesture was polite, almost helpful, yet it arrived half a second too quickly. The investment meeting is Friday morning, he said. Rebecca Sloan expects certainty. We cannot let a dismissed contractor weaken your authority. Evelyn studied his hand resting on the cover. My authority does not require protection. Marcus withdrew it at once. Of course not. He left soon afterward, carrying the folder with him. Evelyn stood alone beside the darkening windows as office lights began appearing across the city, one floor at a time. Down in the financial division, Marcus entered his private office, locked the door, and removed the pages Evelyn had not seen. 3 warnings carried Daniel's signature. A 4th document carried Marcus's. He fed them into the shredder, listened to the blades consume the evidence, then opened the transfer schedule for Friday. What he did not know was that one copy had never entered the building. By the time Daniel reached the apartment in Oak Park, evening rain had glazed the sidewalks and turned every street lamp into a trembling reflection. Sophie sat at the kitchen table with her recital shoes in front of her, one sole peeling away at the toe. Her honey blonde hair had been gathered into an uneven ponytail, and her bright green eyes lifted the moment the key turned in the lock. Did you bring the new pair? She asked. Daniel set the cardboard box near the coat rack and removed his damp jacket. Not tonight. Did something happen at work? Something happened. Was it your fault? He looked at her carefully. Children often asked the question adults were too proud to face. No, he said. But being right does not always mean things become easy. Sophie touched the loose sole with one finger. These can still work. You should not have to make them work. You always do. That simple answer reached deeper than any insult from the boardroom. Daniel crossed the narrow kitchen and knelt beside her. The apartment smelled of tomato soup, and the cinnamon candles Sophie lit whenever rain made the rooms feel colder. A radiator clicked beneath the window. On the refrigerator, a school calendar showed Friday circled in purple marker. Recital at 7. Rent due by 5. Daniel opened the junk drawer, found a tube of shoe adhesive, and spread newspaper across the table. Hold this steady, he said. Sophie pressed the leather together while he guided the edge into place. How long does it need? Overnight. And then they will look new? Daniel smiled faintly. They will look loved. After dinner, Sophie practiced her steps and socks across the living room carpet. Daniel sat nearby with the old laptop balanced on his knees, entering a password he had not used in years. The machine hummed, paused, then revealed an archived copy of Hartwell's original payroll architecture. He compared routing records, vendor numbers, and authorization times. One pattern appeared, then another. Marcus had hidden each transfer beneath legitimate expenses, always below the internal review threshold, always late on Thursday afternoons when oversight was weakest. Daniel counted 27 movements across 14 months. The total made him stop breathing for a moment. Sophie noticed. Is it bad? It is serious. Can you fix it? Daniel looked at the patched shoes beside the window. I can show someone where it is broken. He attached the audit, the 3 ignored warnings, and the original system map to a new message. In the recipient field, he typed the address of Rebecca Sloan, head of the investment group preparing to place $80 million into Hartwell. His hand rested above the trackpad. Sending it now could protect the company, expose Marcus, and destroy Evelyn's confidence before the agreement even began. It could also make Daniel appear vindictive, exactly as Marcus had described him. Sophie stepped closer and read the only line he had written. Before Friday, please verify account 47. Are you going to send it? She asked. Daniel watched the cursor blink. Not yet. Why? Because truth should stop harm, not create more of it. He saved the message as a draft, scheduled a copy of the evidence to an independent server, and closed the screen. Across town, Marcus entered Hartwell's financial system from his home office and scheduled the final transfer for Friday at 9:45 in the morning. At that exact moment, an automated alert from Daniel's archive program awakened for the first time in 12 years and quietly sent a notification to an address Marcus did not know existed. Thursday began with a hard white frost along the edges of the apartment windows, turning the rooftops of Oak Park pale beneath the early sun. Daniel woke before the alarm, brewed coffee, and found Sophie asleep on the couch with one repaired shoe still resting in her lap. She had waited for the adhesive to dry and must have drifted off while checking it. He carried her gently to bed, then returned to the kitchen and opened the archived alert on his laptop. The message showed a late-night transfer request routed through 3 shell vendors and approved under Marcus Reed's credentials. The final destination was hidden. Behind account 47, Daniel enlarged the transaction map and traced each line with a pencil. "There you are," he murmured. The amount scheduled for Friday was not a small theft. It was $14 million disguised as an acquisition fee, timed to move minutes after Rebecca Sloan's investment cleared. Daniel saved the evidence to 2 encrypted drives. One went into his coat pocket. The other he placed inside Sophie's music box beneath a faded photograph of her mother. At 7:15, Sophie entered the kitchen in blue pajamas, rubbing sleep from her green eyes. "Did the shoes survive?" Daniel asked. She lifted one foot and tested the sole against the floor. "They are stronger now. So are you. Are you coming tomorrow night?" Daniel met her hopeful gaze. The recital began at 7. Hartwell's agreement would be signed that morning, but any investigation could stretch into the evening. "I will be in the front row," he promised. Sophie studied him with the seriousness only children could give a promise. "Do not say it unless you mean it." "I mean it." Across the city, Evelyn Hart stepped from a black sedan outside the company headquarters. She wore a deep emerald coat that brought out the icy clarity of her eyes, and her auburn hair moved softly in the cold breeze. Employees turned as she crossed the lobby, not merely because she was extraordinarily beautiful, but because she carried authority with the quiet precision of someone who had never expected rescue from anyone. Marcus met her near the private elevators. "We found the source of last night's security alert," he said. Daniel accessed the system remotely. Evelyn stopped. His credentials were disabled. He used an old administrator route. The route he designed. Exactly. Marcus handed her a report. Every page appeared complete, yet one timestamp was 7 minutes earlier than the alert Daniel's original program had generated. Evelyn noticed the difference. Marcus noticed her noticing. "Technical clocks drift," he said quickly. "Not on synchronized financial servers." The elevator doors opened. Neither moved. Evelyn looked at him, and for the first time, his polished confidence seemed rehearsed, rather than natural. "Bring me the raw access logs," she said. "Not a summary. Rebecca arrives tomorrow. We should focus on the agreement." "The logs, Marcus." His smile held, but the color beneath it faded. "Of course." He entered the elevator alone. Evelyn remained in the lobby, reading the report again while morning light spread across the stone floor. At the same moment, Daniel's phone rang. Natalie's voice came through barely above a whisper. "Marcus is framing you." Daniel closed the laptop. "I know." Evelyn asked for the original logs. "Then Marcus will erase them." "What should I do?" Daniel looked towards Sophie's bedroom, where she was humming the recital melody while getting dressed. "Do nothing that risks your job," he said. "Just tell me when he enters the server room." Natalie inhaled sharply. "He is already there." Daniel reached for his coat. Before the line disconnected, every light on Hartwell's finance floor flickered once, and account 47 disappeared from the system. Daniel reached Hartwell shortly after 8, but his disabled badge would not open the revolving gate. Beyond the glass barrier, employees moved through the lobby carrying coffee, tablets, and the nervous excitement of an important morning. Natalie waited near the reception desk, pretending to review a maintenance request. When she saw him, she crossed the floor without drawing attention. "Account 47 is gone," she said. Marcus deleted the visible record, but the transfer is still scheduled. "What time?" 9:45 tomorrow morning. Daniel checked the wall clock. 24 hours remained before Rebecca Sloan's investment entered the system. "Did you copy the raw logs?" "Only part of them." Marcus restricted the archive. She slipped a small flash drive into the side pocket of his cardboard box. "This proves he entered the server room and redirected your credentials." Daniel closed the pocket. "Thank you. What happens now?" "You go back upstairs." "And you?" "I make sure the truth reaches the right person." Natalie glanced toward the private elevators. Evelyn may not listen. Listening is her choice. Warning her is mine. Daniel left before security could question him. He spent the afternoon at the public library, rebuilding the deleted trail from the archived program and Natalie's partial logs. Rows of figures filled the laptop screen while rain tapped softly against the tall windows. By 5:30, he had enough evidence to stop the transfer, expose Marcus, and publicly humiliate the woman who had withheld his wages. He could send everything to the board, the investors, and the press with one command. Instead, he opened a blank message addressed only to Evelyn Hart. At that hour, she stood alone in her office overlooking the river. The evening light gave her refined features a softer warmth, but fatigue had unsettled the certainty she usually wore so well. Marcus had delivered the raw log she requested, yet 17 minutes were missing. He called it a server error. Her instincts called it a lie. The intercom sounded. "Ms. Hart, Rebecca Sloan has arrived early. She would like to review tomorrow's agreement tonight." Evelyn looked at the unsigned documents on her desk. "Give me 10 minutes." In Oak Park, Daniel returned home to find Sophie rehearsing beside the kitchen table. Her restored shoes made a gentle tapping sound against the linoleum. "Front row tomorrow," she reminded him. "Front row," he promised. Then his phone displayed a message from the landlord. "Payment must be received by 5 tomorrow afternoon." Daniel had less than $12 available after buying Sophie's prescription. He could ask Evelyn for his money in exchange for silence. He could let the company fall and use the evidence in court. He could prove that dignity was only a luxury for people who could afford it. Sophie stopped practicing. "You look worried." Daniel closed the banking application. "I have to choose how to tell someone the truth. Is there a wrong way?" "There can be." She considered that. Mom used to say a warning should leave room for someone to do better. Daniel looked toward the framed family photograph near the refrigerator. Grace was not weakness. It was power held under control. He returned to the laptop and attached the audit, the access trail, and the original system map. The subject line contained 4 words: check. Account 47 first. His message was brief. "Before you sign, ask Marcus where the $14 million will go at 9:45. You have 10 minutes to verify it privately. After that, I protect everyone else." Daniel scheduled the email for 9:35 the next morning. Across the city, Evelyn entered the conference suite to meet Rebecca Sloan. Marcus was already seated beside the final agreement, smiling as though every uncertain detail had been removed. What he did not know was that the truth was no longer stored inside Hartwell, and a clock he could not control had already begun counting down. Friday morning unfolded beneath a clear autumn sky, and by 9:20, the conference suite at Hartwell Technologies had become a stage for confidence, money, and carefully concealed fear. Rebecca Sloan sat across from Evelyn with the final investment agreement open before her, while 2 attorneys reviewed the closing pages and Marcus arranged a row of silver pens beside the signature line. Evelyn wore a midnight blue suit that sharpened the luminous grace of her features, yet the calm in her face did not reach her thoughts. 17 missing minutes remained unexplained. Daniel's warning remained unanswered. Marcus's eagerness remained too polished. "We are ready whenever you are," Rebecca said. "So are we," Marcus replied before Evelyn could speak. At 9:32, Daniel sat inside his blue pickup outside Sophie's elementary school, watching parents carry flowers and garment bags through the entrance. Her recital would not begin for hours, but he had promised himself that no corporate crisis would steal another important moment from his daughter. His laptop rested on the passenger seat. The scheduled message would leave in 3 minutes. His phone showed a voicemail from the landlord, a notice from the county office, and a photograph Sophie had sent of her restored shoes beneath the words they held together. Daniel touched the image, then looked at the clock. At 9:35, the message left his outbox. Inside Hartwell, Evelyn's tablet chimed once. She almost ignored it. Then she saw Daniel Carter's name. "Before you sign," the message began. "Ask Marcus where $14 million will go at 9:45. You have 10 minutes to verify it privately. After that, I protect everyone else." Evelyn read it again. Rebecca noticed the change in her expression. "Is there a problem?" "A question," Evelyn said. Marcus leaned toward her. "Whatever Carter sent is another attempt to interfere." Evelyn turned the tablet face down. "Where does account 47 terminate?" The room stopped moving. One attorney lowered his pen. Rebecca's gaze shifted toward Marcus. "I do not recognize that designation," he answered. "Then open the live transfer schedule. We should complete the agreement first." "Open it." His hand remained beside the folder. "Evelyn, Delaying now could damage investor confidence. Refusing will damage mine. Marcus drew a slow breath and entered his credentials into the wall display. The transfer schedule appeared, but account 47 was absent. There, he said. Nothing. Evelyn checked the time. 9:38. 7 minutes remained. Search archived routing. The archive is under maintenance. Restore it. That requires Daniel's original administrator key. Rebecca closed the agreement. Perhaps Mr. Carter should be contacted. Marcus stood too quickly. He was terminated for misconduct. Yet he knew the exact amount and time, Rebecca said. Evelyn looked at Natalie, who waited near the rear wall with the technical team. Can the deleted route be reconstructed? Natalie swallowed. Not from Hartwell's servers. Marcus gave a thin smile. Then this discussion is over. Not entirely, Natalie replied. She placed a flash drive on the table. Daniel built an external integrity mirror into the original architecture. It records changes made by senior credentials. Marcus's confidence finally fractured. Evelyn inserted the drive. A map spread across the display, showing the $14 million transfer, 3 false vendors, and 1 approving name. Marcus read. 9:41. 4 minutes remained. Cancel it, Evelyn said. Marcus reached for the keyboard. Natalie blocked his access with a remote command. Only the chief executive can authorize cancellation now. Evelyn entered her code. The screen requested a second verification key. Daniel's key. Silence settled across the suite. At 9:43, Evelyn picked up her phone and called the man whose pay she had withheld. Daniel answered on the second ring. Mr. Carter, she said, her voice stripped of pride. I need your help. He watched Sophie's school doors open across the parking lot. You have 2 minutes, he replied. Daniel shifted the laptop onto the steering wheel and opened the authentication panel while Evelyn placed her phone on speaker in the conference suite. Read me the verification code on the display, he said. Natalie called out 6 digits. Daniel entered them, paused, and watched a second prompt appear. The system is asking for the original integrity phrase. Evelyn looked toward Marcus. Do you know it? He said nothing. Mr. Carter? She asked. Daniel glanced through the windshield at the school entrance, where children in recital clothes hurried past their parents. Integrity cannot be borrowed, he replied. The phrase unlocked the protected layer. At 9:44, the transfer route reappeared in full. 3 fabricated vendors. For concealed approvals. $14 million waiting behind one final command. Daniel guided Natalie through the cancellation sequence while Evelyn confirmed each request from her terminal. Marcus attempted to interrupt. This is unauthorized, he insisted. Rebecca Sloan folded her hands on the table. The theft appears more unauthorized. You do not understand the architecture. Then explain why your name appears on every approval. Marcus looked toward Evelyn as though expecting the loyalty he had manipulated for years. He found none. Cancel it, she said. At 9:45, the amount changed from pending to blocked. No alarm sounded. No one celebrated. The screen simply displayed a single word, denied. Daniel closed his eyes for one brief breath. $14 million had remained where it belonged, but his own bank account still held less than 12. The transfer is stopped, Natalie said. Evelyn lowered her gaze to the rejected invoice still lying beside the agreement. Daniel, stay on the line. Before he could respond, another notification appeared on Rebecca's tablet. She opened the message and read silently for several seconds. Her expression hardened, then softened into something closer to respect. This was sent to my office yesterday, she said. Mr. Carter provided a complete audit and requested that we delay any action until you had an opportunity to investigate privately. Evelyn turned toward the speaker. You could have ended this agreement immediately. Yes, Daniel said. You could have exposed me in front of every investor. Yes. Why did you not? Outside his truck, a father adjusted his daughter's recital ribbon before leading her inside. Daniel watched them cross the sidewalk. Because correcting an injustice should not require creating another one. Rebecca continued reading. The message contained the ignored warnings, the altered access records, and the archived payroll logs. It also included Daniel's instruction that Hartwell employees should not lose jobs because of one executive's deception. The room absorbed the truth slowly. Marcus had expected revenge, outrage, and public humiliation. Daniel had offered evidence, restraint, and a chance for redemption. Security access has been suspended. Evelyn told Marcus. The board will begin an independent investigation today. After everything I did for this company? He asked. You mistook my confidence for permission, she said. You mistook his silence for weakness. Marcus gathered no papers. He carried no defense with him when the company attorney escorted him from the suite. Rebecca turned to Evelyn. Our investment is paused, not canceled. What happens next will determine whether Hartwell still deserves it. Evelyn looked at the unsigned pages, then at Daniel's name glowing on the phone. I understand. Daniel checked the time. Sophie would be waiting backstage. I have to go. Your wages will be released immediately, Evelyn said. That should have happened 3 days ago. You are right. I know. His answer held no triumph, only exhaustion. Evelyn rose from her chair. There is more I owe you than money. Daniel opened the truck door as the school bell rang across the parking lot. Then begin. With fairness, he said, and ended the call. Daniel entered the school auditorium with less than a minute to spare. The room glowed beneath warm stage lights, and rows of folding chairs were filled with parents holding programs, flowers, and phones ready to record. He slipped into the front row just as the music teacher stepped to the microphone. Sophie stood near the curtain in a navy dress, her honey blonde ponytail tied with a white ribbon, and when she spotted him, the worry in her bright green eyes disappeared. She lifted one foot slightly, showing him the repaired shoe. Daniel touched 2 fingers to his heart. The piano began. Sophie moved carefully at first, then with growing confidence, each step landing cleanly despite the patched sole. Daniel watched without checking his phone, without thinking about Hartwell, rent, or the documents waiting in his coat. For 3 minutes, the entire world became his daughter keeping a promise to herself. When the final note ended, the audience rose in applause. Sophie bowed, smiling through tears, and Daniel stood with everyone else, clapping harder than any man in the room. Near the rear entrance, Evelyn Hart had arrived unnoticed. She no longer wore the polished certainty of the boardroom. Her auburn hair fell loosely around her shoulders, and her striking face carried the quiet humility of someone seeing the cost of a decision for the first time. She watched Sophie run into Daniel's arms after the performance. You came, the girl said. Front row, he answered. Just like I promised. Evelyn waited until the other families began leaving before approaching. In her hands were a plain envelope and the original unpaid invoice. Daniel saw her and gently placed Sophie beside him. Ms. Hart, he said. Mr. Carter. Evelyn looked at Sophie. You were wonderful. Thank you, Sophie replied, then glanced at her father before adding, my shoes stayed together. Evelyn noticed the carefully repaired leather and lowered her eyes. I'm glad they did. She offered Daniel the envelope. Your wages, the late penalty, and written confirmation that every accusation against you has been withdrawn. Daniel opened it, checked the amount, and removed one document. This includes a settlement. For what I put you through, I will accept what I earned. He handed the settlement page back. Not money meant to make the mistake easier to forget. Evelyn did not argue. Then let me offer something else. An independent position overseeing ethics and system integrity. You would answer directly to the board, not to me. Daniel studied her. Would the lowest paid employee be allowed to challenge an executive? Yes. Without losing a paycheck? Her answer came slower, because this time she understood what it required. Not only allowed, protected. Sophie looked between them. Does that mean my dad gets his job back? Evelyn gave a small, sincere smile. It means he decides whether we deserve him. Daniel folded the invoice and placed it in his pocket. Across the hall, the custodian dimmed the lights one section at a time. I will review the offer, he said. After the weekend. Evelyn nodded. That is fair. The word remained between them, simple and heavier than any apology. Daniel took Sophie's hand and walked toward the exit. Before stepping outside, he looked back. Evelyn stood alone beneath the fading auditorium lights. No assistants, no board members, no wealth powerful enough to shield her from the lesson she had finally accepted. 3 days earlier, she had believed authority meant deciding who was worth paying. Now she understood that dignity could not be cut off, loyalty could not be purchased, and respect only began when pride became